Is Turkey a friend or an enemy of Israel? Is it a stabilizing or destabilizing element in the Middle East? And is it openly anti-Semitic or just speaking internally to its own public? Well, this week there was a terrorist attack, or an attempted one, against Jews in Istanbul, in the capital of Turkey. And today we're breaking down everything related to Turkey and its regional influence.
Let me give you some more news about the situation. Turkey is now considering to give up its Russian-made anti-rocket, anti-airplane defensive systems in order to purchase American top-of-the-line air fighting jets. Okay, is this a signal of something happening in this region? We're going to know pretty soon.
So our question today is Turkey good or bad? And I'm asking this because we've been talking about this nonstop for months now. They say they want to be part of the stabilizing force on the ground in Gaza. But at the same time, they're stealing land in northern Syria. They say they want to be part of a regional alliance, but they make threats against Israel on a daily basis, according to the Israeli Prime Minister office, 3 times a day, not just once.
In front of any crowd that wants to hear something against Israel.
Yeah.
But according to the Turks, this is just internally. It doesn't mean anything for the public, to threaten to down the plane of the Israeli Prime Minister.
Yeah, which is a threat the Turkish president makes on a weekly basis, it seems, that he will eliminate Israeli politicians, including our prime minister. And then Thomas Burke, the American emissary to this region, says, no, that's just internal political talk.
Yeah.
Don't take him at his word.
Don't take him at his word, And we learned that we need to take our enemies at their word, especially when they're stating that they want to destroy, annihilate the Jewish people. So let's break it down, Mati. Okay, we see that in this region, the Middle East, you cannot have a vacuum of power. What we've seen in the last 2 years is that Iran, which was the regional power, has been weakened significantly by the proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, and other terrorist militias in Iraq and also in Syria have been weakened significantly, and now a new power is rising up, and it looks like it's the Turks. So their leader, Erdogan, is stating that they want to be the Ottoman Empire once more, and they are willing to send troops into Gaza. They already have troops inside Syria. They want to give up the alliance with the Russians in terms of buying their military weapons and acquiring top-of-the-line U.S.-made munitions. Do we need to worry about this?
Yes.
Short
answer, yes. Long answer, yes, but. And that's the problem with everything here in the Middle East, is that the relationships are super complicated. Turkey's been emerging for years now under the leadership of President Erdogan, who seems to win every single election
miraculously
in a landslide.
The people love him.
Yeah, according to President Trump, he's the model of how you can always make sure that you win elections. He said this in front of him, by the way. Watch the clip; it's unbelievable.
Erdogan looked confused there.
Erdogan doesn't speak fluent English. Yeah. The translator was the one who was confused. He wasn't sure if he was.
He wasn't sure if he's going to survive the next day.
Anyway, so here's the story. Turkey is a complex country. It's an enormous country. It has an enormous population, but it faces a huge amount of challenges, both internally, politically, financially, and regionally. And what they've been trying to do as things sort of shift in the Middle East is once again reposition themselves as the kingmaker, as the top dog, as a substantial force that has to be involved in every conversation. And I have to say this, multiple times they've succeeded in doing exactly that.
Exactly. Yeah. In Syria, they have forces now inside the Syrian grounds, and according to them, they are defending Syria and Turkey from Kurdish terrorists. So they have this angle to claim that they're defending their people and fighting the bad guys, and now they want to send their troops into the Gaza Strip. I mean, what do they have to gain from sending Turkish forces into Gaza? And according to recent reports, they are also willing to engage the Hamas terrorists and trying to disarm them.
Well,
that's what they're saying.
That's what
but
they're saying, yeah.
They have Hamas leaders that are now residing in Turkey. They're the only country that are now giving them long-term asylum.
So if we want to understand the psyche of the leadership of Turkey, maybe we go to our chairman of the Knesset, who says that the 3 tenets of power in politics are the 3 kafim: kesef, kavod, v'koach.
Money?
Money, power, and
Honor.
honor. And he understands completely the Middle Eastern culture. He lives it every single day. That is what they're going for. They're going for the money. They're going for the power. They're going for the respect. So how does that look? On the one hand, they're involved in what's happening in the Gaza Strip. They were, and I say this as a compliment to the Turkish government, hugely instrumental in the ceasefire agreement with Hamas. Why were they hugely instrumental with that?
Because Hamas leaders are residing in their hotels.
Exactly.
So they say, hey, guys, either we give you up or you sign this agreement.
So is it a good thing or a bad thing? It's both at the same time.
Yeah.
On the one hand, they put a lever of power on the head of the Hamas leadership outside of the country. On the other hand, the reason they have that power is because they host Hamas.
All the time.
So, you have those two equations. It goes on. They said they want to rebuild the region. They want to be part of supporting the finances of both Lebanon, Turkey, Lebanon, Syria, and the Gaza Strip, of course. And they do that by sending aid and cash. But what do they also send? Ships full of terrorists and weapons. And they do that to the Gaza Strip during the war.
Yes, and before the war.
And before the war.
Exactly.
And the Mavi Mauma is a very well-known case where the Turkish government got behind a Islamic Brotherhood-related organization in Turkey and sent literally a shipload of weapons and terrorists to the coast of Israel to try to break what they called the blockade on Gaza, what we call a shipment of terrorists and weapons, which is exactly what it was.
Exactly. So guys, just before we start, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I have a question for all of you, so I would like to hear you answer it in the comments. Our producer here thinks that this sweatshirt belongs to the 80s or something like
Sweater
that.
or jumper.
A jumper, how you call it.
So,
tell us, does this look good?
Are you going to side with Gitai and tell me that this sweater is not flattering or not a good look? Or do you like the sweater? Let us know in the comments. If I win, Gitai has to wear a turtleneck for the next 30 days.
Got it. Yeah. And it's all debating on the comments. Amounts of comments for or against this sweater. Let us know. Okay, very interested.
Back to talking about villains that are not me wearing a turtleneck. Let's talk about President Erdogan. He's this very, very enigmatic character.
Enigmatic?
Yeah.
What's that mean? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
No, mysterious.
Okay.
Enigmatic. He's a mysterious character. Because
Enigma, okay. Got it.
I don't think it's that enigmatic. I think it's just anti-Semitic.
Hey, Tomer, you're good with the words.
Tomer is
impressive.
So let me ask. I'll ask it the same. It's a question of is it good or bad? Is President Erdogan, is he just a radical Muslim, or is he playing a very, very well-crafted diplomacy and international power game? The answer is yes.
Also
He's
internally.
Both. He's both. He's both a radical Muslim who sat in Turkish prison for being a radical Muslim. By the way, in Turkey, sitting in prison as a politician is a common practice. They say it's the way you have to go through to make it into regional politics. Sorry, national politics in Turkey. It's a joke. It's a joke in Turkish politics. So he sits in prison for being a radical Muslim. But the Turkish population supports him greatly. He's also a man who knows how to play the power game with other countries, getting the European countries to pay him to stop Syrian and Iraqi refugees from entering into Europe. Pay him a lot of money, by the way.
Turkey is a NATO member.
Yeah.
So and it's like a radical country, becoming even more radical in this region.
Yeah,
so it's like he can play both games.
And it gets more complex. If you ask the question, is Turkey a Western country or a Muslim Arab country? The answer is neither. They're Turkish.
They're Turkish, yeah.
It's a completely different culture and a completely different behavior set that is misunderstood by us for the most part.
Exactly. Different language and then different culture, different aspirations, different history, but still Muslim.
Exactly.
Okay.
And by the way, Iran is
the same.
The same kind of complex entity where they're not Arab. They're Persian that are, according to many Iranian experts, a country that was hijacked by radical Shia Islam, but isn't fully Muslim and isn't fully Shia and isn't fully actually Persian either. It has Kurds and Baluchis and a bunch of other minorities within it.
Minorities.
Yeah, many minorities, a substantial percentage. Turkey's the same, by the way. It's not one national entity. It's a majority of Turkish ethnicity people from that ethnos, but also many Kurds, and also other minorities in the country. And they too have internal issues that they're dealing with. And they also play this game between traditional Islam and being a westernized country. So there are many different things with a lot of tension internally, which also helps us understand why they're so different externally. They, on the one hand, play together with the U.S. They were the ones that made the ceasefire deal happen in the Gaza Strip in October. There's no question about it. They were substantial. At the same time,
push Hamas to the limit.
Yeah. That same President Erdogan, he threatens the lives of Israeli politicians openly. He makes anti-Semitic claims. He repeats anti-Semitic rhetoric. They attack people that are Jews or related with Judaism inside Turkey itself. They call for violence against Jews. They call for terrorism. So they're all of these things together, very complex. And then we go to the question of, why does this matter? And the answer is because they're really strong and they're really influential and they can change. And this is not just Israel.
How strong they are?
Let me explain. So not just affect Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Gaza. They're affecting what's happening in Greece. They're affecting what's happening in the Aegean Sea. They're affecting what's happening with oil and natural gas pipelines that go from what is, let's call it the Arab Sunni world into Europe. They control a lot. And when you look at that, where they sit geopolitically, where they sit financially, where they sit religiously, they sit on a lot of really important junctions, and they've been throwing their weight a lot.
I would say they're the connecting country between the Middle East and Europe. And that's exactly the atmosphere that's going on there. You have many European factories that are stationed in Turkey. I know that most of my home equipment is made in Turkey, like Bosch, what is it called? Electronics,
consumer electronics.
It's like I think it moved from Germany.
Your shampoo, your toothpaste.
Yeah, the tiles in your bathroom.
Most
the toiletry in your house. Yeah. The consumer appliances that we use throughout Europe and Israel is sort of part of that market.
It's either made in China or made in Turkey. Yeah. That's what I see in my household.
A very high percentage.
Exactly.
And a lot of the furniture too. That's very substantial.
So why would they gain from sending troops into the Gaza Strip?
They want to be a regional superpower again.
So they just want to be everywhere?
I mean, they want to influence everyone. And so think about it from this perspective. Turkey is not talking about Gaza because they care especially about the people of Gaza. Maybe someone in their government does. For the most part, their actions are more towards aggression against Israel. And they look at every possible angle that they can. They're reading the Iranian playbook, and they're saying, where can we be on Israel's front door or back door in a place where we're able to affect threats or to apply policy against them? And Gaza is a great example of that.
Didn't they learn from the last 2 years that Iran suffered from being the aggressor against Israel?
But they're not using that same type of aggression. Because if
they're thinking, I'll do it better, I'll be better than what happened to Iran.
I think they do it better because it's Iran only does destruction. They've never exported policy. They've never exported hegemony in the sense of being like a regional overlord. Because Iran doesn't say
they don't have proxies, basically.
Turkey. But not only that, it's like the Iranian government doesn't try to say we want to have a regional effect that pulls politics in this way. They just want to destroy.
They want to have the Ottoman Empire back.
I mean, so I'm saying if you compare that to Iran, Iran wants to break down and destroy. They're very, very clear about that. It's very much like a destruction path. And the Turkish government isn't that. They're not trying to export terrorism. They're trying to extend their power and influence. Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. So it's a very different play. And they're not trying to, you'll see it. They don't carry out terrorist attacks. They don't, through proxies, carry out terrorist attacks. What they're trying to do is build up regional power. And they think very carefully about how to do that. I'd say they're closer to the Chinese in the way they exact foreign policy than to the Iranians. They look at the money path. They look at trade. They look at where there's like a weak link that needs someone to intervene in, and that's where they enter. And then they're able to really affect the conversation and show everyone who's looking the Turkish government is the strong one. They're the influential ones.
Let's play a game, okay? Let's say the Turks are now on the ground, boots on the ground in the Gaza Strip area. Yeah. Are they going to fight Hamas terrorists to get them disarm of their weapons?
No.
There's no way, right? They're going to be there. They're going to say, we are maintaining the agreement and then letting Hamas terrorists infiltrate from the sidelines.
Maybe not actively, but that's really the problem. We've been talking about this a lot in the daily boots. You really have a problem. Like very few Muslim countries are willing to pay the price of having their soldiers. It's two different things. Fight directly against Hamas, which is another Islamic entity, or worse, as from their perspective, have their soldiers be killed by Hamas terrorists.
Yeah.
That would be a huge PR problem for these countries.
Exactly.
So what do they do if they're afraid?
People will say, we want revenge. against Hamas. And then how can you support Hamas?
And their people are supportive of Hamas to begin with, as are the Turkish government. So what do? They do nothing. They do what peace supervisors and keepers have
like
been doing.
UN peace forces.
Yeah, they hide in their bases and they sit at the roadblocks and they hide behind the border lines. They're not going to be effective in stopping Hamas. So Hamas will de facto control the terrain, which is they're already working on as we speak.
This is what they're doing now.
Yeah, the only one stopping them now is the IDF in the region. There's plenty of countries, Turkey included, that will be happy to do humanitarian or engineering work or civil governance or whatever, but they don't want to be fighting against Hamas. That's the last thing they need from a PR perspective. So it's really tricky in that sense. What they would probably do is they'd use this as a mechanism to weaken Israel.
So saying like our troops are here, Israel cannot bypass the Turkish troops, and then Hamas is protected,
Or they
vice versa.
Or they do a more complicated political game. They'd ask Israel for something. It's typical blackmail. They'd say, hey, we want something, a special embassy to the Palestinian people on the Gaza border or in Ramallah or in East
Another
Jerusalem.
border crossing with an airport.
Something that Israel can't give them or doesn't want to give them. And then Israel says, naturally, no. And what happens? Suddenly, the Turkish forces in the Gaza Strip, let's say Israel would allow them to be there, which is not going to happen, they suddenly forget that there's an area that they need to protect. And then Hamas finds itself on the fence again with Israel. Israel makes a big noise. They send a ton of forces over there. It's an international incident. And Turkey says, we're very sorry. Without what we asked for, we wouldn't be able to do what you asked us to do.
Exactly.
And so then
it looks like we violate the ceasefire agreement by protecting ourselves.
But not only that, every one of these exchanges ends with Turkey gaining more power.
Yeah.
Because Israel doesn't want to go to war against Hamas. Now it gets even more complicated. Let's say that plays out. And now Israel has to strike against a target that's mixed between Hamas forces
and
Turkish forces, and Turkish soldiers are hit by IDF forces.
That's an international incident.
Exactly.
Big time.
So then, and this is why Israel is so hesitant to have Turkish forces. Hesitant's a nice word. Israel will veto.
Vehemently rejects this idea to the core.
So that's what would happen, and then Israel would be fighting with its hands tied behind its back in the Gaza Strip, and we say, absolutely not.
No.
So let's talk a bit about what Turkey's been doing in the region so far. You talked about this, the power vacuum. Mm-hmm. So Iran falls to a great degree, Hezbollah falls, and then their area of influence, and the Russians, by the way, they retreat from what was full Syria, now is part of Syria, under Ashara. They retreat.
Latakia area, their bases.
Coastal areas of Syria. They retreat from that area. Syria looks on that and says, now's our time to take over terrain. There's another play over there that has to do with the Kurdish minorities inside of Syria too. And they take over some terrain and they put a squeeze on like that area on a military level. And then they say to the world, this is what we're doing here. Now we want more.
Exactly.
We want more.
This is not enough. We need to have influence in the Mediterranean. And there is a whole power struggle between an alliance related to natural gas.
Yeah.
And there you have Israel, Cyprus, and Greece that are controlling a huge pipeline to feed Europe with energy. It's a big project that is in the making for many, many years now.
You need to explain this to people. It's
right,
like a really big issue.
It's a huge issue now.
Yeah.
So basically, there are a few natural gas reservoirs on the Mediterranean Sea. And these gas reservoirs are controlled by Israeli companies, and there is a pipeline leading into Europe so that Europe will have energy, gas.
No, but it's not active yet.
No, it's a big project that is in the making.
In construction or in the making.
Many years now. And the idea here is to give Europe energy that is not through the Russians, to have another energy source into Europe.
Yeah.
Okay? And this trilateral agreement between Israel, Greece, and Cyprus will strengthen these three countries, which is something that the Turks is opposing because Turkey is occupying half of Cyprus, which is something nobody talks about.
Nobody cares.
A lot.
Yeah, for many, many years.
Many years now.
Yeah.
So there's a big dramatic deal. Plus, the Greeks Navy and the Turks Navy are not friends, and there is a conflict of interest related to the territorial water of the Mediterranean Sea. Big issue. And now Israel is signing a gas deal with Egypt, strengthening this trilateral alliance and weakening Turkey. Right?
Yeah.
But all of this is each sentence is worth a podcast.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say
It's very hard to explain.
it's so complicated.
Yeah.
So the question is, where does the gas flow through and where does it come from? So one route that the Turkish want is they want any natural gas and any oil that's flowing from the Middle East
To go through them.
You'll go through them, be it Iraqi, be it Israeli, be it Lebanese, because there's deposits throughout the coast of the Mediterranean. So Lebanon, Israel, Egypt have like these deposits of natural gas. And if the pipeline runs through Turkish territorial waters and then on like the land of Turkey,
And they get taxes,
then
they
control it. Let me just give an example of how this works. Russia has a huge amount of natural gas that it sells to Western Europe, namely Germany, by the way, a huge amount to Germany, less in recent years. And when the Germans don't play nice with the Russians, according to their opinion, then someone that will remain unnamed sabotages the gas line from Russia to Germany, and then suddenly there isn't gas for heating homes in Germany that winter. Huge geopolitical lever of power by the Russians on the Germans. Turkey wants the same thing. They want to have that power to be the on-off button to allow resources in and out of the region.
In Europe especially.
Exactly. Where there's a lot of money to buy those resources.
Yeah.
And then Israel says, well, Turkey's our frenemy on a good day and our full-on enemy on most days of the week. Let's circumvent them.
Let's bypass.
Let's go straight Cyprus, Greece into Europe.
Underwater,
Yeah,
massive project of a gas pipeline.
exactly. And Turkey hates that idea. One, they really, really dislike the Greeks. They're an active adversary of the Greek Navy, the Greek Air Force. They, on a daily basis, almost violate their airspace and their naval space. They do it intentionally to weaken the Greek country.
And the Greeks are supporting Cyprus.
Yeah, but it's more than that. The Cyprus peace happens because there already was a competition between them, over who's sort of the gateway into Europe from that side of the Mediterranean. So Turkey really dislikes that idea, and it's throwing around its weight a lot to prevent Israel from being able to ship directly through Greece. Because what happens, and you described this beautifully, what happens if now there's a deal and Israel is exporting natural gas from Israel to Egypt? That deal was, what was it, 110 billion shekels over 5 years?
120
Billion over 5 years, something like that.
It's the biggest.
It's the biggest natural gas deal in history, from what I remember. And that's Israel. Israel's selling to Egypt, by the way.
And it's
Yeah, and
putting
because
Egypt on the right place with us because they need us now.
Yeah, but that's because, so basically Israel is extracting the gas from the ground, sends it to Egypt. Then Egypt has gas refineries to make it into a different
they can
cooking
export
gas
they can export
or
it, but
something like that, and then ship it through the pipeline to Europe.
No,
That's
that's
or through other stuff.
they use it themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I think that's you.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
No, that's one route is into Egypt, and then Egypt uses it for its own energy purposes, and it can export to its neighbors, who some of them might need.
But yeah, it's supposed to feed into 25% of the energy needs of Egypt itself.
But that's one
Turkey is
direction.
that strong?
That's south. Yes.
How strong?
On a military level,
I got the information here if you want, but
Where did you put the information?
in orange in our script.
yeah, it's
No,
big.
Turkey's very strong.
Yeah, so let's go through it. I think it's interesting, actually. So let's talk about manpower. So the Turkish army is the second in its size out of the NATO alliance after the United States of America. Well, that's huge. That's huge. So it's about 355,000 soldiers, active soldiers in the Turkish army, and then 378,000 reserve military personnel, and 150,000, civil military forces.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're talking about their ground forces. They have more than 2,200 tanks, mainly Leopard 2 and M60 American-made tanks, and 61,000 armored vehicles. And then they have also started creating new tanks, Altay, a Turkish tank. Why? I remember the times where Israel helped them with tank technology and stuff like that.
Whatever we help them.
We've helped them with a lot. We sold them tanks. We sold them in.
We upgraded their
It
tanks.
was an upgraded. Was it an M60 or M48? There was an
M60.
It was an M60 that was called the Sabra. I remember it.
Great tank.
I remember this because I served on a variant of that tank, and then they took a lot of the tanks that were decommissioned in Israel and retrofitted them for the Turkish army. They were called the Sabra. They had a fire control system. Then Turkey blamed Israel that the tanks didn't work. There's a whole story.
Maybe the whole hatred.
We used to be great friends with Turkey. I went there after my bar mitzvah. I used to go to Turkey almost every other year. It was like a great vacation place.
It was a great tourism destination.
Yeah.
But
great snorkeling, great prices.
I asked the question the same way that Egypt is a good place, well, in times of peace, where a lot of Israelis go to Sinai on vacation. Are the people actually supportive of Israel, or does the government have the interest of having a relationship with Israel? It's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's hard to say because at the tourism sites, people love tourists.
Yeah.
So they feel friendly, but you don't know what the core villagers think and stuff like that.
You know, I think that's a big question to be asked.
Exactly. Okay. In 2025, Turkey is planning to have more than 80% independence on the production of its own military needs. That's like huge for this size of an army, meaning to create everything in-house. And then they have also UAVs and rockets, and she's a world leading in the unmanned aerial vehicles like the Bayraktar, which is one of their unmanned aerial, like suicide drones basically. And they also revealed their Typhoon Block 4, which is a missile that can maneuver and bypass defensive systems, aerial defensive systems.
How many ships they have? 90.
90 ships. Yeah, that's also...
And 200 F-16. That's...
Not bad. Yeah.
That's not bad at all.
It's a big army. It's a big army.
It's a substantial force.
Turkey have 20,000 soldiers right now in the north of Syria. That's how effective they are.
That's how strong they are, maybe.
So the U.S. has 1,000 soldiers. Turkey has 20,000
Yeah, but
soldiers.
Turkey has soldiers there not necessarily to fight against Israel. It's one, a show of power. Two, it's in a region that in their country is a very, very tricky region. Turkey's been fighting a war against this. This is very, very complicated. I'll say it as a headline and move on. Against
you know all the details. You're the only one that's been there.
Yeah, I've been there. against multiple Kurdish, let's call it resistance organizations.
Mati travel all over.
Back in the day before, while it was still safe.
Area.
So Turkey's fighting against one of the let's call it, or the independent Kurdish organizations. Specifically, the fighting against
PKK.
The PKK is the one Turkey's fighting against, and there's a region inside Turkey proper that has a Kurdish, very large. They're not a majority. They're not a minority in that region. They're a majority in that region. They're a minority in Turkey proper. So they're very concerned with the Kurds because they don't want the Kurds to have autonomy, and the Kurds look at the same situation that the Turkish look at destabilization, and they say, guys, now is a time where we can stake out a country.
In Iraq.
Exactly. Iraq is
Syria,
weakened.
Yeah.
Iran is weakened. Turkey is not in the picture right now. Syria is falling. Bang, let's get a country. And the Turkish government looks in and says, we really don't want that to happen. They fear and hate the Kurdish minority, and they've treated them very poorly throughout history. And they take an action against that. So the reason they have forces over there is in part to deal with the Kurdish minority or majority in that area, whatever, to deal with a threat that's perceived by the Turkish government. Mm-hmm. But it gets farther than that. Turkey, and you talked about this in the beginning of the podcast, they're playing a game also on who their military alliance runs with. Are they buying American equipment? And they're a huge trade partner for the Americans. Yeah. Just to respond to what Tomil said, there is no scenario nowadays that a modern army can provide itself.
Everything, yeah.
It doesn't make any financial sense. The only country that can do that would be the United States, and even they buy a lot of equipment from other countries, including from Israel, by the way.
Exactly, and from others.
Yeah, they buy a lot of equipment from other countries too, including weapon systems, including assault rifles. I mean, it's far more complicated in the modern reality that we're living in. So Turkey plays the game. Mm-hmm. They want to buy certain things from the United States, and they threaten the United States, if you don't play nice with us, we'll buy it from the Russians.
Exactly.
That's the game they're playing.
But now after this 2 years of war, we've learned that the Russian systems don't work as well as the American systems.
Or at all.
The
Or they
Israeli
don't work at
systems.
all.
Oh, don't work at all. Yeah. So I think that not many people want to buy from them anymore. So I don't know, Mati. So do you think that? I don't know. Do you think that they're going to become stronger and stronger? I don't see a way of weakening them.
Here's one last thought to understand, which is people misread the intentions and the agenda behind many countries' actions. And they think that their government looks only at the short term, and they think they're only rational in their decisions.
Because they think it from a Western point of view.
But even Western countries don't do that. Western countries, too, do things out of a desire for prestige, for respect, for a place in the global standing. And that, by the way, is the logical thing to do, because the way you're perceived as a country affects all your other metrics. It affects your demographics. It affects immigration and emigration from your country.
Yeah.
It affects your trade deals. It affects everything. So when you project power, everything else gets better, because you seem like a healthy horse to bet on. So Turkey looks at this, and here's their problems. They have a corrupt political system, and the corruption in their political system has weakened their economy dramatically. So much so that many businesses have left Turkey, and that they have a lot of internal tension that has to do with the corruption that takes place. For instance, every time there's an earthquake in Turkey, which happens about every 20 years, from what I remember, a bunch of, let's call it national projects fall apart, and then you find out that the contractors were corrupt and stole the money and built them poorly.
They didn't reinforce the concrete
they didn't use real
correctly.
concrete, etc. Anyway, so that's one example. So they have internal financial issues because their policy, as it is externally, is very problematic internally. Some of it is good and much of it is crazy and terrible. But they have a demographic problem too. Countries that lose hope and emerge out of a second world country into a first world country, they have a demographic decline where the women in the country and the families have less kids. Turkey's suffering from that problem. They have another problem. Much of the bright people in the country go to other countries. They emigrate to other countries in Europe.
In Europe, it's easy for them. It's just like crossing the border. You can take a bus, by the way, from Turkey to Greece.
You've done that?
No, but I was in Greece and met some people from Turkey. They came for the weekend. So one bus, 8 hours.
Well, so they have a problem with immigration with a lot of bright people and a lot of good businesses leaving the country. Then they look regionally and they say we're not up to speed when it comes to technology. We're not up to speed when it comes to education. We're not up to speed when it comes to the information level that our population is able to work with.
Yeah.
So they're technologically behind many other countries and many other people. And then they look at the region and they say, we want regional power because our ability to threaten Europe when it comes to immigration, that's power. Our ability to put a chokehold on naval travel from the Russians out into the Mediterranean, that's power.
Yeah.
It always has been historically, by the way. Our ability to be the one that channels natural gas in and out of Europe, that's power. Our ability to threaten Israel, that's power. And then when you add the icing on their ideological cake, which is the fact that Erdogan truly seems to be a real anti-Semite and real...
He really believes in it.
He really believes in it.
He's
been saying it for so many years, we have to believe him at this point. He seems to be a true radicalized Muslim Brotherhood man and a true anti-Semite to the core. You combine those things, and they're a very scary adversary. They're a very scary entity in this region that seems to be going more and more in the path of irrational behavior, according to our book. And it's quite terrifying when you think about it from that perspective.
I think when you go to a full-on irrational behavior, that's when you start also to collapse. So like they're growing because they're thinking and they're playing the wise political game in the geopolitical area in this region, also by aligning themselves with the US and with like the West. And then once they move full speed on the radicalization, that's when they're going to collapse.
Yeah.
I mean,
so here's an analogy to help this. In Israel, I don't know if they do this in other countries. When you have a child that's like the bully or misbehaves in a classroom, the teacher grabs him and says, "Come, Moshe, Yair, Mati, whatever. come sit next to me." And they put him beside the teacher. That's where Turkey is in relation to the United States right now.
Okay.
The United States, and Trump does this physically. It's not just,
come Erdogan.
Come Erdogan, come sit next to me, sits him down. This is a good friend, good guy. Many years we've been good friends.
He knows how to win elections.
Yeah. and he brings him close because he wants him to be his ally in the region. He wants to stabilize him. He wants to steer him in the direction that's positive. And again, countries look at these things. It's not black and white. It's what can I get from this partner today? Does it last tomorrow? We don't know. But for today, this is the best thing we can do. I'll say this. Turkey is strong enough and influential enough that they have to be taken into account.
Yeah.
And because of that, they will shape what happens in this region also for many years to come.
Oh,
That's the reality.
Sure. Talking about partners, Mati.
Yeah.
You know today's partner? Today's partner is Vinya.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who do not know Vinya yet, Vinya has been with us for 2 years now, and they are an Israeli supplement. It's basically this little pill that extracts all the good stuff from the grapes in Israel, puts them in a pill, lots of antioxidants, and it's supposed to increase your blood flow and make everything better in terms of energy, in terms of your feeling, your mood. I've been taking them, I think, for maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years, also throughout my time in the Gaza Strip, where I didn't have much hours of sleep. You also, when you were in Judea and Samaria commanding your troops. By the way, you're there, I think, today or tomorrow.
Tomorrow I go back.
So not much changed. But really, we've been with them. They are an amazing high-tech biotech company from Israel, and it really helps to increase your blood flow. So if you want to try it for yourself, go to vinyatbnisrael.com. Again, vinyatbnisrael.com, or call 800-638-1944. 800-638-1944. Try it for yourself. We're trying it every single day almost. They also have coffee, tea, and soon energy drinks kind of thing. Yeah. It'll be cool. And chewable stuff, which are tasty.
Yeah. So I think it's time to wrap this up. Turkey's a very interesting player, and the Middle East has been
But what Israel doing against on the ground?
So first of all, I think the biggest thing that we just did to kind of stick it to them is to sign the gas deal with Egypt.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest move that Israel made, is aligning itself with Egypt, which is another superpower in this region that is struggling to find its place in this regional power play with Iran, Egypt, Turkey. Is there anybody else I'm missing? Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, Qatar,
that's about it.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Exactly. So by joining in with Egypt, with Greece, with Cyprus, Israel is forming an counter-Turkey alliance, which I think is very, very important.
It is, and it's counter-Turkey and pro-American. And the U.S. in this situation, the Trump White House, it doesn't really matter to them, and it doesn't need to, what the name of the country is. This is what we're trying to do in this region. And anyone who's willing to help with this, anyone who's willing to help, we're willing to play with them. We'll take you. Yeah, why not? Why not? If Turkey's willing to be a active, positive force in stabilizing this region, and it works for everyone for the time being,
We'll take it.
so be it. And if Israel has a problem with it, okay, then let's work out those problems. Again, there is no black and white when it comes to international relations, especially not with superpowers, especially not with regional large players such as Turkey. It's about what are your interests in the time being, and what do you do to stabilize it. And in that time, Israel has to continue, and we do very actively, calling out the flawed behavior on behalf of Turkish leadership and the country. And we did just the other day, we had a discussion with them where the Israeli Prime Minister's office publicly stated, said, we have a problem. We can't have a situation where this country says they're our allies and want to be part of the deal and are calling anti-Semitic calls and rhetoric.
Their president is calling against Israel on an almost daily basis.
Exactly. And well, they said it's escalated. It used to be that he compared, we get banned for saying this, he compared Netanyahu to Hitler twice a day. Since October 7th, he's been doing it 3 times a day. That was the statement by the Israeli Prime Minister office. It's not far from reality, by the way. It's not far from reality. So very complicated relationship. But Turkey's a complicated country with a lot of agendas, a lot of interest, and the world is a complicated place. Right now, our prayer should be for the leadership of Israel, for the Trump White House, to be able to steer this massive ship of aligning interest and conflicting interest all in the direction of nation building and positive trends. That should be the goal.
And some kind of economic dependency between the 5 countries that are involved in each deal to make them have a stake in the stabilization of each other.
Yeah.
There needs to be some kind of mutual dependency in these situations for it to last. That's it, I think, Mati.
Thank you, Yair.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Tomer.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem, for wisdom to our leaders, for our enemies to start loving us instead of hating the Jewish people of Israel, God can make it happen. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time at TBN Israel, the podcast.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.